Everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. Today's guest that we have on the show is Chemistry Howard, better known to you as the Classy Trucker. She spent nearly a decade in semi-truck driving and owner-operator experience, building her career in a male-dominated industry. Since then, she's become a speaker, a mentor, and a confidence coach, helping others grow along the way and giving that same grit and resilience out to everyone in the industry. So stick with us. We have a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, Chemistry, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm stoked to dive in and learn all about your experience in the industry and just kind of everything that you've gone through. For those that may not know who you are, let's start there. If you can just give us a quick rundown, just who you are and what's your role in the industry today? Uh-oh, I think we might have froze.
Hello.
I can hear you, but you're frozen. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Catch up.
Okay, thank you. It was frozen for a moment there. This technology is real fun. It keeps us on our toes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so just to repeat, I couldn't hear the last question you asked.
Yeah, if you just give us a quick rundown who you are and your role in the industry today.
Yeah, so again, my name is Chemistry Howard. I also go by the Classy Trucker. On many of my handles, social media handles, that's what I'm known as. And I am currently still in the industry. I do work for a company. I won't mention company name per se because I'm looking to expand and move back into my own rig and unit. I've been an owner operator for several years. I actually started the owner operator position in 2019, right before the big event happened to all of us. So it was a great time to be an owner operator, but it was also an extremely difficult time because there were a lot of new challenges. Of course, we were all facing new things at that time. But I had an interest in this industry since I was, about 7 years old when my grandfather came home in his long-nosed Pete. It was blue, it was chrome, and he jumped out of the truck like a superhero. I swear a cape popped behind him as he walked towards the house. And I was like, that's my grandfather. And I told him I was interested. And he said, no, young lady, never. He was not a fan of me getting behind the big wheel, but that's when the passion began. And so quietly, secretly, I kept learning about the industry. I researched things. I learned about different trucks. I learned about different lanes and what they were about. And then I had to just go get it done. So got my CDL and told Grandpa I got my CDL, and I'd actually been driving for about a year. And he told me, you'll be done in 3 months.
Really building you up there. You know, that's fantastic though. We always start off asking you why this industry, like what brought you here in the first place? And that's interesting on that level. I mean, someone in your life that you look up to you like your grandfather, and I fully agree. You know, as a kid seeing those semi trucks rolling down the road, they're mysterious, they're majestical, like they're these huge contraptions. When I was a kid, it's kind of stupid to look back on, but at my grandparents' house, it's kind of in a rural area, Missouri. There was a trucking facility just kind of catty corner from their front window. And when that garage opened up, and it was probably some kind of a wash bay or something, I don't remember. But when the trucks would come out, like as a kid, it scared the hell out of me. I didn't think there was people that drove them. I thought they were some kind of like mighty machine monster things. But like they're a mysterious, machine that really captures kids' attention. But I'm curious, with that aspect, it capturing your attention, but your grandfather telling you, heck no, right out the gate, is that kind of that curiosity of, don't tell me no.
That's exactly what happens. When you don't want someone to do something, tell them that they can't do it. Yeah. So if he would have encouraged me, I probably would have said, yeah, maybe not, because it's really big, it's really daunting. But the fact that he kept it away, it became it was more intriguing. There was more determination to understand it and to learn more about it. And I couldn't help but tell you, when we would be on the highway and a big truck would go past us, that rumble it did something to me. It stirred something in my soul, and I was like, I'm going to do that. And I remember being in school, and I'm now face to face with this idea. It's now reality, and I'm looking at this truck, and I'm like, this is bigger than I thought. I'd only seen them when my grandfather came home. He was only in the rig. He didn't have the trailer on. So now I see a complete unit, and I'm like, wait, this thing is huge. This is a building, is what I thought. And I said to myself, I said, if I can make the right turn, if I can turn this truck on a right corner, make a right corner turn, I got it. I've got it. That's going to be the hardest maneuver I think I would have to do in the truck. And I was in school, and, of course, we're doing theory and perhaps and things like that, but we weren't in the truck yet. And the day that I got in the truck to drive for the first time, and my instructor told me, okay, we're going to make a right turn at this corner, my heart raced. I paused. This was the moment. If I can do this, I can do this. And I turned the corner. I cleared it. The trailer wheels didn't touch the corner, the curb, cleared it. And then I let go of the steering wheel, threw my hands in the air, and said, yes! I told my instructor, I'm just marking the moment. This was just to mark the moment, because this was the moment. And if I could do this, I can do this. And it's been over 3 million miles since that day.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I mean, there's a lot to be said there. I mean, for someone who doesn't drive a truck, caring about making that right-hand turn, like, that doesn't seem like much. But when you're hauling a full trailer behind you, like, again, to clarify, I'm not a truck driver. I work in the marketing side of the industry, and I'm not going to name names here either, but the carrier that I work with for a long time, we were doing a shoot one day, and, I've had the opportunity several times to, drive a truck and a trailer around the yard, just kind of, get the feel of it and stuff. And I can only imagine being out there. But we were doing a shoot that we had to go to the next parking lot over to really, be able to use like docks and stuff. And the guy I was with was like, why don't you just take it around? And I was like, dude, what? Like on the street? And I knew right there, because they're on the intersection of a, pretty busy intersection. And I'd have to make that right. And that's the first thing that came to my mind is I'm going to take out that stoplight. And they're like, no way, bud. No way. We ain't making the news today. So I can only imagine. I mean, that's a big hurdle. That's a lot to accomplish.
It is. And it's also the most exciting thing once you do it. When you get it done, it literally is a moment in your life where you just can't go backwards, because it's not for everyone. Everyone is not built for the industry. It's not just the physical, it's a mental. Honestly, it can be spiritual at times. I mean, to be quite honest, I've had many moments out there on the road that were very spiritual, because it was like, wow, this is incredible. But it definitely defines a person, and you want to define yourself before it defines you. And that's what I learned. That was one of the biggest things that I learned out there.
100%. And not that we have a lot of, non-trucking community watching this. I wish we did, but that's one of those things that they see a semi truck and they're just like, just do it. Just get out of the way. It's like, it's an entirely different experience. You can be in your little Honda Civic and make that right turn. No issue. I mean, hey, I've had a pontoon and stuff before, and I've dealt with the backing of that. I'm that guy at the boat ramp that is a complete nightmare, pissing off everyone on the face of the earth. So I could not imagine. How was that with you starting out? Getting to back that trailer, that seems like the biggest nightmare to me. Two things that I had to remember. I only listened to people that had been in the industry for at least 10 years. If they didn't have 10 years in their belt, I was gracious. I was classy, but I didn't listen. I didn't listen to what they had to say, because they were coming from a space where I felt was just not enough experience. Maybe they had some good luck. Maybe they had a few things that happened that were, good opportunities. But I was in this for the long haul, literally. I wanted to do this I wanted longevity in this industry. And I listened to the people that had the thing that I wanted. Of course, after the first year of driving, my grandfather says, okay, now I'll start teaching you. Seeing you serious there, seeing you, all right, she's in it. She's proven herself.
Yeah. So now he's going to start teaching me, and he put me in contact with his buddies. And they were driving in the 50s, 60s, 70s, before I'd even touched the planet. They were already 10 years into it. So they had forgotten experiences we would never learn about.
Right.
But what they all said, there was a common thread, and that was take your time. That was take your time, and you have all the space you need. And that was the common thread that I continued to work with. It didn't matter where I was, what I was doing, what dock I had to back into, what were the obstacles. I had all the time I needed, and I had all the space I needed. I just needed to operate within those limitations. And that reminds me of a story. I will mention this company because it was kind of fun and everyone knows about it, but I had a delivery at a Pepsi company. And I didn't know, this was my first time there. And so I didn't know that most of the drivers would come in, unload their trailer, and then the yard jockey would come pick it up and dock it. I didn't know that. So I just knew what I knew. And I crawled in as close as I kept tight. I kept everything tight and slow. I wasn't slow. I would say I was meticulous.
There you go.
And I was able to maneuver the truck and trailer back into the dock, and I did it within, I thought took forever. Found out it took like 7 minutes. It wasn't 17 minutes. I didn't even make it over the 10-minute mark, but it took me 7 minutes to dock. And I was like, oh gosh, that took forever. I was kind of beating myself up on the length of time that it took me to back in there. And I get out to go get the paperwork or to give them my paperwork. And there were 7 guys. I remember this 77 number, right? There was 7 guys standing there, but one I called ZZ because he reminded me of the guys from ZZ Top, right? He had this long beard and long mustache, and I could see this huge smile under all that hair. And I'm walking towards him and I'm kind of nervous. And he's like, darling, you just made me a lot of money. So I appreciated that because he was the only one betting that I was going to get it done. And then not only did I get it done, I got it done in record time. So that was just another opportunity for me to appreciate, okay, I'm in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. And I've just had lots of moments like that and lots of challenging moments for sure. But yeah, those are things that definitely stick with me.
That's fantastic insight. I want to unpack some of that, but I want to go back just a little bit. You mentioned 2 things that really stood out to me. One, about not listening to someone they didn't have that, 10 years in the industry, basically someone that, for a fair degree didn't know exactly what they were talking about. That really stood out to me. I mean, with this, we're focusing on that mentorship where we're talking to people like you that have been in the industry, has that lived and learned experience to pass on. We're also talking about an industry that has a high failure rate. There's a ton of trucking companies that start every single day and a ton of trucking companies that end every single day. And so I think that's a huge point that you touched on, being careful of who you take that advice from, because one thing we learn is everyone's got advice, right? Everyone knows the right way to do it. And some people are really, really good with that, gift of gab and being convincing. I like that idea that, make sure they have that time in the industry and not just the clever wording behind it.
Yes, absolutely. I would tell you this and say it very graciously. The super truckers are all gone. They just are. The students are still on the road.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that for sure. That brings me into the mentorship aspect, that person that is continuously wanting to learn and evolve with the industry and, also pass that along like you yourself are doing. I think that, that original mentor I'm hearing in your story still, reigns back to be your grandfather. And then it sounds like he's introducing you some other mentors in your aspect. In your opinion, how has that really impacted your career, your journey, your understanding to have that trusted mentorship and insight?
You don't make it without it. You just don't. There used to be a time in trucking history where truck drivers had a reputation of being professional. They were courteous on the road. They knew how to navigate the highways and byways better than anybody. That's why they were a profession. And I think what's happened is people have gotten into it chasing the money and not looking for what this industry really brings to the table, which is the backbone of this country. If
Yeah.
trucking stops, so does the country. So with that does come a great deal of responsibility, and it also comes a lot of humility. And I have definitely sided on being more humble behind the wheel, because I know with one bad choice in a microsecond, it will change someone's life. It'll change my life. And, people got a little lazy when things became easier when it came to navigating. When you didn't have a phone or a GPS to look at to tell you stop by stop where to go, where to turn, you had to be focused and you had to pay attention. And I believe that there's been a little bit of a loss. I love the fact that we have GPS because it does make getting from one place to the other
Yeah.
less stressful. But I also think that we still have to remember we are still in control of this equipment, and we're in control of the road, and we just have to keep that humility behind the road. That's been one of the biggest things that I've learned. And again, my grandfather, he just retired. I think he was 50 years behind the wheel.
Wow.
I think it was 52 years exactly. And I was like, Papa, would you ever think? He said, no, I'm done. It was a lifetime. And he loved it when he did it, but he was so good at the job. I had a lesson with him going through the road atlas. And he read that road atlas better than the GPS could even. I mean, it couldn't compare.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I admired that ability, because I said, this is something that's it's like cursive writing. It's a lost art. The art of being able to navigate using the map and the atlas, whether or not the GPS is working, I think is imperative to understanding how we operate and how we navigate the roads. But in saying that, it just comes back to the fact that we get a little comfortable when things become easier. And so we lose that sense of carefulness. I do want to say that, because it's definitely something I've seen. I shudder to tell you some of the things I've seen on the road other drivers are doing, and it's like, are they kidding? But it comes to having people that's gone through those tougher times and listening to them. That mentorship, it helps you to remain for me, I'll speak for myself. It helped me to remain in a space of humility, because like I said, at the drop of a dime, it could be someone's life, or, and I just, nothing I ever delivered ever was worth that sacrifice.
You bring up some excellent points there, and it's bringing so much to mind here, but we do in society today. I think we get so used to modern conveniences, and we fail to take seriously the core knowledge behind it, and we just lean on it, like the GPS. It's a fantastic tool, but it's also a tool. Like, you've got to have the baseline knowledge behind. I say it almost every episode. I think trucking is one of those industries you can make a lot of money in trucking, but you can spend a lot of money in trucking and put yourself out of business real quick with a wrong move. And something like just we hear it every day, relying on the GPS, and the GPS fails you and sends you into a tight spot, and then you can do some serious damage with a truck in the wrong spot. In the some of the best case scenarios. Otherwise, it can just get really, really hairy there. It's kind of like it makes me think of calculators too, and it's a bad example for me because I lean on a calculator just as much as the next person. But I fail to especially in school, I failed to take seriously that core knowledge behind. I was like, I got a calculator. But man, if all is that GPS, when it's down or it tells you wrong, it's tough out there. And especially in trucking, like it's rare to have that dedicated route, right? Like, you're often in places you've never been before, or if you were there once, it probably changed since the last time you were there. We live in a society that's building and tearing down every 2 seconds. So 100%. That's something that definitely uses a tool, but there's a lot of information behind it that can really help you out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to kind of tap in because you bring some, excellent insights there. And you've talked about you were an owner operator, you're back working for a company, you've got that ambition to get out there again as an owner operator. And that's a lot of the people that we, have listening to the show have that same ambition to jump out there, start their own company, maybe grow into a fleet, etc. But that's a whole different ball game. So I want to tap into a little bit of your experience there because you deal and you learn so much as a company driver. And I think that's insanely valuable experience, right?
Yes.
But then when you go to be an owner operator, you're taking all that plus the entire company on your shoulders. And I have so much respect for owner operators because unlike any other business where, you've got the office and everything, you're on the road and you're also trying to manage an office, so to speak, right? So there's a lot there. I think one of those major aspects that is a hurdle for everyone in the industry is kind of the finances, uh, as an owner operator, how did you handle those ups and downs with, say
Mm.
cash flow, being that 30, 60, 90 days out that you got to wait and you still got those
Mhm.
expenses coming in. And what are some lessons around that you learned kind of the hard way as you went?
Very good questions. Very good questions. I actually knew before I got my truck to find a partner.
Okay.
That was the first thing that I said. I said, I can't do all the positions. You cannot do this as a solo person. You have to have a team. And one thing that I did before I got my truck, before I purchased my first truck, I actually made good connections with brokers.
Okay.
So I just found some really good brokers. Unfortunately, they have left the industry because it's been a while, but I just had good brokers that worked well with me. And I then factored, but I also had a good company. Now, the company, while I was an operator, our company, we only had 5 trucks. So we were a very small micro company. And the gentleman that did our safety was also our dispatch as well, if I
Okay.
say that loosely. And he did a fantastic job. And I appreciated him because he made my job easier. One thing I will say personally, I love driving the truck. I didn't always like managing the office stuff. It's a grind. Mhm.
Yeah.
And it can be so distracting and it can be very stressful. So I believe you have to, before you buy that truck or put that lease into place, have the business side of it solid. Have a solid foundation. Do your research. Honestly, I can't mention any companies that I would recommend today because everything is so different.
Sure.
But I would say do the research. If you find something that seems like a good opportunity, take your time. Don't rush into it. Give yourself a deadline. Give yourself a time for, I'm going to do this in the next 3 months and research whatever that is that you want to accomplish to see how lucrative is it, but also how much is it going to cost to be in that lane? Because you're right. The first time I had to replace all 10 tires on my tractor. Actually, now looking back on it, it was a bargain, but it cost me $11,000 to replace all my tires.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, that didn't come in payments. That was one check that had to be written out to cover the expenses of my tires. So, that's not even the maintenance of other things that go along with it. It was just getting those tires replaced.
Right.
Now, personally, I started my career in Colorado. So I started driving in the mountains and in snow and in inclement weather. So certain things you just have to know that you're going to, you have to get ready to deal with that. So you want to be prepared and you want to know what you're getting into. So that would be the one thing I would absolutely mention. When it came to, I never got contracts. I was always looking for some good contracts, but I worked with a lot of brokers,
Yeah.
and they kept me going. They did well by me. Yeah.
You mentioned the aspect around the large bill with tires, right? And like you said, that's pretty good price for for tires there. But to the non-trucking community, it's like, holy crap. It brings to mind my daughter. They're just at the driving age. My youngest 16, oldest 20 now. But my youngest brought me over her phone the other day, and she's watching a video, and it shows a trucker filling up his gas tank, and she's like, "Oh my god!" Because she just just getting used to filling up a gas tank and what that costs. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
it's a lot of money, but with everything they got to pay, that ain't nothing, kid.
Exactly.
It's just one of those things, but it also brings back, to the point of making that or bridging that gap from company driver to owner operator. It's like, now you're taking all that on. You've got to look at it a different way and be able to budget that, because you can sink the ship really fast if you fail to. I guess one of the things you mentioned there is you work with factoring companies. I know we've talked on some other episodes. One thing they talk about with factoring companies, I guess, is the aspect that there's a lot of like partnerships built into them with, truck discount, or I'm sorry, not truck discounts, but like truck tire discounts and other services like that. Was that something that you experienced when you dealt with factoring, and how valuable do you think that is versus trying to source everything individually?
Oh, I think trying to source everything individually is a disaster. It's just, there's too much. There's too many moving parts to keep your business going. I think you really have to do the research and find a company that you're going to trust, that and that actually leads into one thought that I had. Relationships are so invaluable.
Yeah.
In trucking, we lose relationships because we lose time, because we are gone. If our wheels aren't moving, we're not making money. Our income is stifled. So we stay on the road. But in doing so, you lose out on a lot of time. You lose out on time with your family, even with yourself. But keeping relationships with people that you're in business with is just, it's priceless. If I could say that, yeah, it is. It's priceless. You want to keep yourself connected with people that want to see your business succeed, and you for them as well. So a referral business, I actually truly only did business based on referral. If someone referred a company, they were high on my list, because I didn't have time to find out if this was a good company or bad company. I've got to move freight. So it was all about finding companies. Again, I did have a good factoring company. I haven't done it in a while because, like I said, I actually closed my business down 2 years ago simply because I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There was so much going on. There were so many moving parts. I am a mother. I have 2 sons. They both had special needs and they were with the family. So I had to kind of pause on the driving and go take care of the family. And that was just my personal challenge. But many of us have that as an issue. We have families that we're out there supporting and providing for, but we also miss out on a lot. I mean, I know you've discussed that in previous episodes. The cost of being a semi-truck driver or owner operator isn't always in the finances. It's also in relationships. So So I definitely, to answer your question, you have to have a system in place. You just do. If you want to be successful, I will tell you, I raise my hand. I've met and I've done some silly things, but I've met many people that go and buy a truck and think they have a business. And I'm like, no, you have a problem, because there's a truck payment and you've got to figure out how to pay that truck every month until it's done. So it's all about finding good companies. And again, my key to success was just to go for the referral. Like people that I trust, if they trust someone, that's who I would like to deal with.
Right. It's a great point you bring up. Somebody, you get a truck and, hey, I'm a business. You're in the red right out of the gate.
Immediately.
You've got that truck payment. You've got an insurance payment. I mean, I can't even think off the top of my head. There's probably 10 other things.
Fuel. Fuel. Right? Yeah. You got to have fuel in that truck.
I mean, you said it yourself. You got to keep those wheels turning to be profitable. And that's tough because, as you said, one of the largest expenses there that I think so many people fail to realize is there's always family at home, right? I mean, in most circumstances, and that time away is a huge cost, well beyond the financial cost. I mean, that's a huge toll to be wrapped up in the truck and have to deal with that. One aspect that you mentioned there, starting out in Colorado, that's one of those more inclement weather places than most. You've got to deal with a lot. It's bringing to mind that preventative maintenance factor. We've talked about this several times. I think that's hugely important. And another one of those aspects that, a company driver doesn't have to focus on so much as the owner operator and the fleet owner. Now we talked about, factoring companies kind of having those partnerships to get in there, but preventative maintenance can be another one of those expenses and easy to put off. In your experience, did you ever feel, pressure in the industry to kind of put off preventative maintenance, or how up on that were you, and kind of juggling that?
You absolutely feel pressure to put it off because you're constantly under the pressure of time.
Mm.
You got to get this done. You're constantly moving. So there's just a constant pressure to do it later. But I would always I worked it into my schedule. It was in my schedule, maintenance, because it wasn't something you could put off. Being one, a female, and two, I'm not a diesel mechanic. The last thing that I hated was to be stuck on the side of the road in any country or any part of the country. I don't care where. I do not want to be stuck on the side of the road. 90% of my breakdowns on the side of the road were flat tires. Just goes with it. But anything beyond that, I didn't even want to have to consider that. And I've had to consider that. I've had an oil change, and some things weren't done properly, and the oil leaked out all over the highway. Yes. And that could fall on the company to pick up. You have, like, as the company, I could have been responsible for cleaning it up. But since I could prove that I just got this work done, they put it on the company that did the work. Yeah. But those things are imperative. You can't, those are not things that you want to look past, because the moment you do, what could have been, in my case, a $500 oil change, because it can do the filters and the oil and all the things, went from $500 to $5,000 in just a simple, flick of the switch. So
and then there's other factors that play into it as well, right? Weighing that whole short-term savings versus the long-term stability factor. But I mean, depending on what you're hauling, everything's got kind of a time limit to it. But then if you're hauling something, in a reefer load or whatever, and depending what goes wrong, like there's a lot of liability there, and just so much that can go wrong that really kind of brings you back. As tough as it is, and so many expenses around it, and you're always trying to juggle that, but it's kind of one of those bullets you got to bite to make sure that you are getting down the road. But, the more you're out in the middle of nowhere, those expenses that are already expensive only get worse. They got to come.
They do.
Something else.
Because I promise you, it is a lot cheaper to schedule a preventative maintenance service than it is to have it done at the spur of the moment on the side of the road. It's a lot cheaper.
Now, you said with your company, you guys had 5 trucks?
Yes.
So that brings into that factor, bridging into building that fleet, starting with 5 trucks. How did you kind of manage that and approach that, kind of the preventative maintenance factor? And I guess, what were those things that you saw as like non-negotiables as far as spending, and what to get cut? Because, when you're talking 1 truck versus 5 trucks, there's a lot of difference and a lot of balancing act that goes on.
Yes. And let me just clarify, because in our situation, we worked together as a unit, but we were all responsible for our individual trucks.
Gotcha. That makes it easier for sure. But.
Yeah. So it was definitely, okay. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. That's a pun, but I'm going to throw some people under the bus. There were several guys that would just push it, and then their truck would break down. So what was going to be $1,000 repair was now $10,000. I learned from them. I was like, oh, you didn't do that? Okay, I will make sure I do that. This is a little secret. So one of the guys had a truck. He took some time off, and his truck sat, I think, about 6 months. Then he gets back in his truck, and I was like, wouldn't you want to go do like an oil change, or just, your stuff has just been sitting for 6 months. Oh, no, it's fine. $30,000 into cleaning out that system.
Yeah.
$30,000 just to clean out the system. For some reason, he got somewhere along the road, he picked up some bad fuel. Now, in most cases, you're going to burn it off. But when you have bad fuel and then it sits for 6 months, that fuel began to grow some funky things.
Oh,
And then he starts to drive it, and then it's just, it's derating, it's breaking down, he's losing pressure. It's just all these things. And it was just a simple preventative maintenance. I mean, just to take the time to go and clean the system before you get back on the road would have been it would have saved him so many nights, so many headaches. Yeah.
100%. It's a great point, though. I mean, it's interesting to think about, because we think about, with regular vehicles, it's like, well, don't drive it so much, try to, let it go. But like with semi trucks, they're built differently. And,
Mhm.
while you can put too much wear and tear and there's a balancing act, they're also meant to be driven. So it's like when that engine's not getting used, it can almost be worse for it, especially, yeah, if you got some bad fuel and let that sit in there. I mean, there's so many parts to that equation that just, yeah.
Yeah, I learned that lesson through him, and I did that with many drivers. I listened to the ones that I felt had the experience and definitely knew how to guide the newcomer into the right direction. But then I also watched the ones that didn't, and I learned from their lessons. I was like, I will learn from the mistakes you guys are making. So it's a balancing act, but everyone's going to have their own road to, they're going to have their own burdens to tow, right? They're going to have their own issues that they're going to deal with, but you want to give yourself as much knowledge going into something than ever. And it gets real fun. Like a lot of people come into this industry, and you mentioned earlier about the turnover. They come
Mhm.
in with this expectation that they're just going to make $1 million and retire. And it's, oh, no, no, no. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and a lot of self-growth. I think there's I'm not speaking against the younger ones. I just think that there's a level of maturity that has to be given before someone gets behind the wheel. I think
Yeah.
they should start off and just, be a mentor, hang around the industry for a little while and then do it. But everyone is different. Everyone is so different. I was ready at a very young age, though I didn't do it because I was discouraged by my grandfather. Once I got here, I felt like it was the perfect time for me to be here. I really did.
You touched on so many great points there. If we could maybe summarize that in, with your experience going from company driver to, owner operator to experience in the fleet, now you're back with a company and you're looking to get back into owner operator. Like for somebody that's going out as an owner operator for the first time, what's something that you really wish they
Mm,
would understand about the business side of trucking?
mm. As simple as it is, understand your paperwork. As simple as it is, understand what it is to be an owner operator versus an independent operator. Understand what the IFTA is all about.
Yeah.
Understanding the bare minimum to putting this unit on the road. What does that mean? Why do you have to have a separate New York permit to be in New York? Little things like that are the difference between longevity and being out of the industry within a few weeks. Also, not just this thing. I don't know where this thing came out. Just within the last couple of years, people are like, "Oh, I just bought a semi truck. I have a business." No, sir, you do not. You do not. And no, ma'am, you do not have a business. They buy a semi truck and they think they have a company. In fact, I had a gentleman tell me, I'm a fleet operator. Well, he had one truck. And I said, well, sir, you got to have more than one truck to be a fleet operator. and no hate to him. He just didn't understand. And it takes some knowledge. It takes some time. It takes
Yeah.
really interviewing, listening to interviews like what you're presenting to the world. This is invaluable. What you're giving are insights from people that are in the industry. You can't get it just doesn't get any better. And so for people to take time to really understand this is what this is about. We all take it for granted. We take it for granted. Even I'm guilty. We take it for granted that food is going to be on the shelves when I go to the store.
Yeah.
I take that for granted. I do. And then sometimes I go, wait, if people aren't driving, the food doesn't get here. And that's just one tiny aspect of what we do. So for individuals that are looking to go from company to owner operator, take your time and make sure, seriously, that there used to be a saying, have 3 months of savings. If you lose your employment for 3 months, you got to have enough money in your savings to back that up. In trucking, you got to have at least 6 months, and that's bare minimum.
Yeah.
Because the expenses are not just a couple $100. It's in the thousands. So just to be prepared, although I don't want to discourage anyone, I want to tell you that if it's in your heart and you want to do it, baby, do it. Because the best times I have had were driving on this highway and just the freedom. And there is something that comes over you. That's when I knew it was in my blood. And I knew it wasn't a job for me. It was a passion, because I could drive for hours and hours, and it felt like 10 minutes.
I love that quote that you just dropped. We may have to put that on the cover. If you want to do it, maybe just do it. That's fantastic. It brings me to the point, we kind of touched on this in the intro. Your career has gone so much farther than just behind the wheel, right? You've kind of built this platform around building confidence. And I think that's a huge factor there. Tell us a little bit about, the importance of that, but also that side of your career, the speaking, the platform, everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alice. That is so kind. I'm venturing out. I'm spreading my wings. I want to do more than just drive. And I've started working with developing a series called The Classy Trucker. And it's actually real life stories of females that have been driving in this male-dominated space, and how they navigate and how they get through the challenging times of being in this industry, and not just trucking, but in male-dominated spaces, and how you can remain yourself, how you don't lose yourself. Gosh, the stories, I dare not. I'm putting them in a series for a reason. I've seen some things happen on the road that I was like, oh my gosh, what would I do? How would I navigate that? So I've learned to do those things. And now the best way that I could teach those, I don't want to say situations, but the best way I could teach how to navigate those challenges was to tell the stories. So that's what I'm now doing. And I'm going to do it in a format that's probably, I don't know how everyone feels, but I like AI. I am very techie, and I'm using AI, and I have a series of women called Velocity. That's the name of the group. And just based on some things that I love in my life, people that have inspired me, women in particular. And for me, that era of classiness was in the 50s and 60s. I think those women were just top tier when it came to displaying their power, but also in a feminine, delicate, elegant way. And so I've utilized a few of my favorite, I would call them mentors. I think that's a good word for me to use in this space. I use them as mentors to teach and tell stories about women in this industry. So I am actually rolling that out. It has begun, although the series is not completed, and there's always those little technical issues when you're dealing with technology. So I'm running into a few challenges, but it's almost complete, and it'll be released very soon. And I would love to give you a date, but then I would be lying to you, and I don't want to do that. But it's coming very soon.
Well, let me throw this out there. I'm gonna twist your arm in front of everybody just a little bit.
Okay.
Because got to. I feel like there's so much more that we could tap into you. Like you have so much, just a wealth of knowledge, and I'm experiencing that. Like we could probably go on for another 3 hours and just have really, really valuable content. So I would love to get you back on for another episode, and
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear about this venture of yours. So maybe as you get it progressed here, reach back out to us, and we'll get you back on for another one so we can just keep this going, because it's been an amazing conversation with you today. And I just truly want to say thank you for everything that you're doing for the industry, and for taking the time to give back, because you gave a wonderful, props to the show here, but all I'm doing is giving a platform for people like you. You've got the knowledge and the industry experience, and without you being willing to share it with the next generation, that whole system of logistics that makes this world go round, as we've talked about, like, it's also a very sensitive system, and it can fall apart and snag really easy. So I think there's vital importance to be able to pass that on to the next generation and make that next generation stronger, because in return we're making the world stronger.
Thank you so much. And I agree. And I graciously accept your invitation, and I'm looking forward to our next interview together. I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna get all glam for you. Today was a
Hey,
different day.
wow, you look fantastic.
I was having quite the moment trying to just get set up. So it's been really, really exciting. But I was so excited to get here and have this time with you. And I just thank you. I really do appreciate you taking the time to acknowledge us and give us the space to discuss things. I think it's
Absolutely.
so imperative that people understand and know, and that I think we all do what we do from a labor of love. We want to contribute and certainly have a lot to give. So thank you for giving us this space to provide this opportunity to share what we do.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, we've covered a ton today, and we're going to get back on to cover a ton more. Anything you feel like we've missed today that's worthwhile to throw in before we wrap up?
I don't think we've missed anything, but the one thing that I do want to share is just be gracious to each other. We need more love and just more room to give each other space to grow and continue to
Right.
move and do what we do.
Absolutely. Well, before we cut off, I want to give you a chance for some shameless plugs. I know we've mentioned several of them, but tell us a little bit, how can people get a hold of you, find out more about your brand, all that good stuff?
Well, I'm definitely on a couple of platforms. One, of course, being Facebook. Just look up The Classy Trucker, and I'm there. Also, I have a TikTok space that I run from time to time. I'm known as the pop-up queen over there because it's difficult being over there all the time, but it's The Classy Trucker as well. So and we also have a YouTube channel. Again, this is where the videos will be posted. Right now, I just have a little minute 45-second intro on the Velocity ladies, and but that's on YouTube. So just building the platform for The Classy Trucker so we can have more conversation around women in male-dominated spaces.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking some time out to let us, pick your brain today. It has been amazing. I want to thank you again for all that you do in the industry. And yeah, we'll get all those links down below, and we look forward to having you on to the next time.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Everyone out there watching, thanks so much. Remember to like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day.